Hi guys, my name is Kimberly Washburn. I'm the Curator of Education at the Florence County Museum. Thanks for tuning in to learning about individualized art supplies, creating them in bulk for students as you work with them throughout the school year with limited supply sharing capabilities. So when I originally created this workshop, and we did the workshop live, I forgot to record properly. So I recorded my face talking the whole time, and I did not record my second camera, which I'll be using today, showing exactly what I was doing. So you missed the whole entire thing. You just see my face the whole time. So I'm making the video over for those of you who could not watch it live. Hopefully I remember to answer most of the questions that people had, but I'll be happy to answer your questions if you have them via email. So just shoot me an email at flomus_edu@me.com. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to create supplies that students can use individually. The reason that this came up for us is because we were trying to make a large number of kits that students could use, but we couldn't really afford to buy everyone a whole set of watercolors or an entire set of 24 crayons. So we started thinking about how we could make something that was usable and functional, but that would not take thousands and thousands of dollars to produce. And so we landed on this. It works pretty well. It's not perfect. There's definitely room for improvement. And I'll tell you a little bit about the things that work really well and the things that don't work great about these. But in a pinch, this is a great way to get a lot of watercolor paint out of just some really simple supplies. So these are what the little watercolor strips look like. I'm also going to show you this one. Some of these have been used. The bottom two have been used. The top one is new. But I'm going to show you how to make them, talk to you about the supplies that you need, and then show you, just demonstrate for you what you get when you work with these supplies. So let's get started. To create these, you're going to need poster board with a slick side. Now, when I originally did this workshop, I talked to the teachers about the different materials that we had tested for these. So we tested poster board, we tested regular paper, we tested filter paper, and we tested plastic sheet protector, and also a plastic poster board that we have here. And what we found worked best was this poster board with one slick side and one papery side. The filter paper soaked up the paint really well, but it also spread the paint all over the place. So the paint just bled into the paper and into the other colors, and it was really difficult to pick that paint back up. So you couldn't pick it up once you laid it down. Same was true of the regular paper. It didn't bleed as much, but you really couldn't pick the paint back up off the surface once it dried. The poster worked kind of in the middle. So some of it's going to be stuck on the poster, but most of it's going to be able to be picked back up. And the other things, the sheet protector and the poster board, the plastic poster board, the paint never dried on those. So no matter how much we let them sit, it was always kind of tacky on the surface. So that surface was always a little sticky and it was never fully dry. It wasn't something we could throw down in a kit without it getting everywhere. And so we sort of abandoned those. And one thing I mentioned to the art teachers last Thursday was that I think one thing we didn't test because we didn't have any on hand, and it was also not necessarily cost effective for us, was to try Yupo paper. Yupo is a synthetic paper that can be used with alcohol inks and watercolor paint. And I have a feeling that that might work really, really well. The other advantage to Yupo paper is that it can be washed off and reused. So let's say each child had a set of, or a sheet of Yupo paper with these colors on it. They could then use them. You could, in theory, wash that off, lay new paint down, let it dry, and give it back to them. Now, I haven't tried the Yupo paper. I don't know that it would dry fully, but it's designed for watercolor paint. So I would assume that it would eventually dry. So you might want to give that a try. That's something we're definitely interested in trying around here, but we just haven't had it on hand to do that. So back to what you need. You need a poster board with a slick side and a paper side. You need some watercolor paint. We use this watercolor paint. It's going to show in reverse here, but this is Blick liquid watercolor. It comes in a bottle, it's liquid, and it's super concentrated. We actually love this stuff for all watercolor paint. I've completely stopped using little trays of watercolor paint since we found this several years ago. You're going to need a little pipette. These are pretty cheap. You can buy them for like 25 for like $5 at Hobby Lobby, so you can get a lot of them really inexpensively. Alternatively, this is what we use to make all these watercolor strips that we made in the spring. And it took us several weeks to make about 4,500 of these. And since then, we've developed a little bit faster process using these little bottles. So these are detail writers, and they come empty, but they just have super fine tips on them. And so this is a little faster to lay the paint down. I'm not sure if you can buy these at Hobby Lobby. We bought these at Dick Blick, but we have one with every color in it. You'll get to see that in a minute. So that's what we use, but again, you could do it with and I'll show you both ways. You could do it with the pipette, or you could do it with the detail writers. So I'm going to flip my screen and show you what I'm doing on my table surface so that you have a good idea of how this works. And then I'm going to demonstrate for you what the paint looks like. So you can have an expectation of how bright the paint will be, how vibrant the paint will be. So let me flip my screen or share my screen. Make sure I'm sharing it in the recording this time. I'm going to share like this, I think. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so now you are looking at my screen. This is just a cutting mat on my table surface to protect it. And these are the watercolor strips that I've created in the past. Hoping that this is not going to try to focus constantly the whole time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start with I'm going to move those, start with some blank. I'm going to try and, sorry, I'm just trying to make this so that it's not constantly trying to autofocus on us, because that's going to get annoying. Maybe if I do this, it'll be a little better. It's going to be a little closer up, but it's also going to try to do this. My bad. I'm sorry. I really am sure this is going to be better. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to keep going, and if it's not perfect, it's not perfect. So what you're going to do is grab that Blick liquid watercolor. There it is right there. And if you're using a pipette, you'll grab your pipette and your Blick liquid watercolor. And you are going just to use your pipette to suck a little bit of that paint up into the pipette. And you're just going to put some drops down on your paper. Now, when we did this in the spring, we did about 5 drops per student, and then we just used the tip of the pipette to sort of even it out so that it was nice and clean. And that's it. You just keep doing that with each of the colors. It's very handy to have one pipette for each color so that you don't have to keep washing this out over and over, because that would be really frustrating to have to continually wash this. And if you're making a lot of them, then that's not very efficient. So that's one way to do this. Now let me show you how we're doing this now. I'm going to move that one out of the way, and this one here. And now we're using these detail writers. So I'm just going to take the lid off this. I'm going to start with red, and I'm just going to go down the line with these colors. And I'm just going to sort of put a stripe of color. If you want to make it look prettier with the tip of the detail writer, you're welcome to do that. Same thing. And I'm just going to go all the way down the line with these. So you can kind of square that off. Doing the same thing here. Now these pieces of poster board are 2 inches by 6 inches. That's what we found worked really well when we were doing these individually like this. So 2 inches by 6 inches is what worked for us. And doing it that way, you could get a little bit more, I think, than 50 of these per poster board. So 50 paint strips per poster board doing these at 2 by 6. You'll see that the paint goes down very, very dark. I just dripped a little bit on my table surface. I'm gonna get that up. This is why I have this mat down, so I don't drip it all over my desk. All right, getting close here. That was a blue. Here is a violet. I've done these a little too close together, but you get the picture. And this is black. We've added black this time to our watercolor strips. They were not on the watercolor strips in the spring, so we've added that. So that's all the colors, and all you do is let that sit it to the side to dry. So I'm going to set that aside, and when it dries, it looks something like that. Now, let me show you what we're doing. The other thing that we've decided to do that is really speeding things up for us. So you can do it that way. You can cut each and every one of those things on the paper cutter, then use a pipette or your detail writers to put the paint down. But we had an idea, a brilliant idea that maybe we should have had a long time ago. It's one of those things that we're like, why didn't we think of that? To not cut the poster board until after the paint was dry. And so if you can imagine having a whole sheet of poster board, and what we did was actually use a ruler, and we made some lines on the poster board every 3/4 of an inch. And I'm not measuring this at all right now, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So we just used a big yardstick to go down the line and put lines like this, just like that, down our paper, on our poster board. And then we used the detail writer to just go like that and do the whole entire line all at once. So one big line of red, one big line of orange, one big line of yellow, and then we let the whole poster board dry, and the poster board, then we cut the poster board afterward. And that's how you get this right here. This is why the paint is going all the way to the edges, unlike in this one. And you can decide what works better for you in your class, and you know, you can get a little bit more out of this, was the other point. So because we didn't have a white border around it, we could cut this a little bit smaller and it still worked really well. So this is 1.5 inches by 6 inches, and we could get 62 of these out of every poster board. So about 12 more per poster board than this way, just by cutting 1/2 inch off of each one and not giving that white border around the edge. So you'll notice that these have been used because I used them for the demonstration last week when we did this class together. So let me show you, let me grab a sheet of paper and show you what you can expect for results on this. So I'm gonna grab a sheet of paper. This is the exact thing I did last time. I did not have a sheet of paper with me because I forgot about it ahead of time. So you can tell, you can see the writing through this. We're just gonna use a regular sheet of paper. And all you need to make this work is your watercolor strip, some water, and a paintbrush. Now, we talked a little bit about paintbrushes on Thursday when we did the live workshop, but I want to just briefly talk to you about paintbrushes and what we use and what's available that we've sort of thought about to use. So first is this. This is actually what we gave away with our kits in the spring. And this, I don't know how well you can see it, but this is a lip gloss brush, and it's meant to be disposable. It is plastic here, and then this is sort of a velvety flocked surface is what it's called. So, and what I like about it is that it does kind of come to a point. So, oh, I think I'm frozen. One moment. I'm back. Okay, so it does kind of come to a point. So you'll see that point right here, and that enables you to get some good detail if you want it, or this, you can use the flat surface here to paint, which allows you to have broader lines. So it's a good variety. Another thing that you could use is Q-tips. If you just have a ton of them laying around and you want something that you can throw away when the kids are done with it, Q-tips work great. The thing about Q-tips is that they're not really reusable, so they do need to be thrown away. Even though these little brushes are advertised as being disposable, they actually are really reusable. So they wash really well and can be reused as many times as you want to reuse them before you toss them. So I like these because we're not throwing away as much stuff. And we can hand these out and know that the kids have something that they can use for a little while before they need a replacement. Let me show you what those look like when you purchase them. So these were purchased from Amazon. They come in a package of 640 per thing, so they look kind of like this. There's a whole bunch of them. That's how they come packaged. I'm happy to send you a link to them if you're interested. Like I said, they came from Amazon, so they're not hard to find. You can just Google that. But again, I'll send you a link if you'd like. So let's take a minute and look at what we get with this. Now, when we use this paint, I found that it works best to get the paint and lay a little bit of water down on it first and just let that sit a second to kind of rehydrate the paint. If you immediately go at the paint with a paintbrush, it's gonna start getting a little bit clumpy. So I like to sort of rehydrate it a little first, and then I can use my brush in it to create. And this is just regular printer paper. This is not painting paper, which is why you can completely see the words in the background through this. That's not a great paper to demonstrate this with, but you'll get the idea. So you can see it's not super dark. Just gonna put a little water on that, let it sit a second. It's not super dark, but you can get some good color. That paint does rehydrate, and if it's a little bit clumpy, just kind of work the clumps. So you can see, go over it a couple of times. Somebody asked in the first in the live workshop whether or not this paint could be layered, and I don't think it can really be layered very well wet. But what we did discover, because we tried it on camera, is that you can mix these paints, and I'll show you that really quickly. Oh, I think sorry, I hit my camera. So let's say we want to mix some orange. We can pick up a little bit of red here, bring it over to another piece of paper, or just your paper surface that you're using is fine. Wash that off, pick up a little bit more color here. Let that sit a minute just to rehydrate. Again, letting the paint rehydrate lets you lift it up a little bit easier. So I'm going to put some yellow here. I'd already used a good bit of that. A little more. All right, and then we can mix those together to get an orange. So you definitely can mix the colors if you're looking to mix them on your painting surface. So that's my mixed yellow and red. Not super bright, but it's there. You can see the colors are certainly visible. I think one thing about this current sort of pandemic situation is that there's no perfect solution without having a ton of money to throw at the problem. And although this is not, you know, the most vibrant, colorful watercolor that you might use with your students in the classroom on a regular basis, you can definitely use this to get the point across. And we used this with an activity that worked really well with crayon resist. So you can color or draw with crayon first, maybe even do some type of a rubbing, like a leaf rubbing, and then paint over it to get cool effects, and that works really well with this. So I just kind of wanted to show you the colors so that you could have a feel for what you could expect with these paints. I want you to know, this is not the same as having a really beautiful, high quality paint palette, but it's certainly, if you can't share your paint palettes, see, that's kind of what happens if you rub it immediately and you don't let the paint rehydrate first. So again, just let it sit there a second, dissolve that paint, and then you can rub that out. And those clumps do just rub out. So you can see, and I've been washing and rewashing and using this same brush the entire time. So this is not, it's not flimsy. It doesn't need to be thrown away every class. You could definitely use this probably for weeks on end without having to throw it away. So now you have an idea of what these watercolor strips can do. They're super fast to make. You can make probably, we make about 500 to 1,000 of them a day, a couple hours a day, and then all our table spaces are taken up, so we have to let them dry before we can do anything else. But this is something you could easily make in the afternoon before you go home. You come back to work the next day and they're dry. You could cut them apart really quickly, and you could have these for an entire grade level. Everyone could have one for an entire grade level pretty inexpensively. I can tell you that one bottle of this Blick liquid watercolor will make between 1,500 and 2,000 of these, depending on how much paint you put down. So you can get a lot for your money. A whole set of these Blick liquid watercolors with all the colors that are here, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and black, runs you about $30. My screen went to sleep again. Sorry about that. Okay, so that runs you about $30. It's not super expensive. And then the poster boards, if you order them on Dick Blick, for example, they're about $1.20 a piece. So you can get a lot of these for a little bit of money. A little bit goes a long way, and you'll be able to use them. The students can use them once or twice, toss them. But every project you do isn't watercolor. So it's easy enough to make them, use them up, let the kids throw them out, and then start with a fresh one if you need it. It's cheap enough. Okay, so that is the liquid watercolor and the brushes that we use. And I want to show you the other thing. I'm going to move all this out of the way. The other things that we do, just got paint all over me. Sorry about that. The other thing we use for liquid paint are these little condiment cups. These are about 2 ounces, or they are 2 ounces. We order these on Amazon. You can actually buy these at Walmart in packages of 50 for about I think it's like $2.97 or something like that. So under $3 for 50. We buy them for about $8 for 200 on Amazon, and they work really, really well. So we put liquid paints in these. Acrylic and tempered paints are what we use for this. And we have found that you can use these, put the lid on it, that they are watertight. So we haven't had any paint spillage with these. We actually fill these for our family day kits and put them in bags. They don't always sit upright. They're often kind of tilted to the side, and we haven't ever had any issues with them spilling in the kit. So, so they do seal pretty well. And they do keep the paint from drying out. So we haven't had it, also have sometimes make these kits a couple weeks ahead of time and haven't had any issues with the paint drying out in the cups. So again, about $8 for 200, $8 for 200 of these will get you a lot for a little bit. And the students could, in theory, you could fill up paint that they needed in this. They could keep this in their little art kit for several weeks, as long as they're working with this, and keep coming back to it over and over. You could actually have them wash these out and you just fill them up when you need them. So if each kid had a few of these, Every time you needed to give them paint, you could put it in one of these and just have them keep reusing them over and over throughout the semester. So we found these to be really, really handy, and we use them a lot. And the last thing that we talked about is how we're cleaning and sanitizing things. And I'm going to actually turn this screen off because I don't need to share it with you anymore for now. Okay, so the last thing we talked about in our workshop on Thursday was that there are some things that really just can't be shared, or that really have to be shared, I'm sorry, that can't be purchased for everybody. And we've run into that several times here at the museum. Anytime we have a kit that people need scissors, we just can't provide them. And we do always try to give sort of a torn paper option or show people how they could do it without scissors. But we also, especially if they're at home, we try to assume that they probably have some kind of scissors around their house for something. So scissors are one thing that we don't provide. Now, what I will tell you is how we've handled disinfecting scissors here in person. So if we have had a need for people to reuse some scissors, then we're actually using a disinfecting protocol that's really simple that I think would be easy for you to implement in your classrooms. We're using something called Barbicide, and I'm going to show it to you really quickly. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a lot of junk on my desk, so I'm reaching funny. Let me show that to you. Actually, let me find it, pull that up here. Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you here. I think I'm sharing with you. No. One moment. Sorry about this. Seems to always be how it is. Try one more time. Okay. Share. Okay, good. All right, so we use something called Barbicide, and it's most often used in salons and barbershops. It's a disinfectant. This is what it looks like. We order it on Amazon. Right now it's $35 on Amazon, which is not what we paid for it. I think ours was closer to $25, maybe $26 or $27. And it is a concentrated liquid, and you use 2 ounces of this for every 32 ounces of water. So I'm going to stop sharing now that you see what it is. It's called Barbicide Disinfectant. It's a concentrate. You don't use all of this at once, just a little bit at a time. And I can send you a link to this too if you are interested. But with the Barbicide, you take 2 ounces, which just happens to be the same exact amount that this cup is, and you mix it with 32 ounces of water. I'd use just a little bucket to do this with. I don't use the fancy salon container. I just use a little bucket. And I'm going to move this out of the way. So 2 ounces of Barbicide to 32 ounces of water, mix it up, and I just carry that bucket on my cart with me. And anytime somebody uses a pair of scissors during the day, when they're finished with it, they drop it into the bucket. And the way Barbicide works is that you have to keep it in the solution for 10 minutes before it's fully disinfected. And their website does say that it does kill coronavirus. So it will kill, it's like a fungicide, viruside, bactericide. So lots and lots of germs that it kills. It needs 10 minutes in the solution. So for example, let's say you had morning classes and then maybe a break at lunchtime. Then all those scissors that you had used that morning are in the bucket. You could take them out of the bucket, let them dry. You can rinse it off, but you don't have to. It's safe for people to touch after it dries. And it's safe for you to reach into and get. It's not going to hurt you. So let them dry maybe during your lunchtime, and then you have a whole fresh set of scissors that you can use for your afternoon kids. Let them put them back in the bucket. You don't need to dump the bucket. You can keep using it. We use ours for about a week before we dump it out and start over. It depends on how heavily you're using it though. You know, if you're disinfecting 500 pairs of scissors a day, I probably wouldn't keep it more than a couple of days before you dump it and put some fresh in there. But that is a way that you can have one set sort of amount of scissors and let the kids use them, then let them become disinfected, and then let another set of kids use them without sharing germs. So it's a simple cleaning protocol. Take the scissors, have the kids put them in the bucket. You don't even have to handle them. They put them in the bucket. Then you take them out of the bucket, let them dry. The next kids use them. They put them in the bucket. Same thing in the afternoon, and they're ready to go in the morning. That's how we do it. You can also use Barbicide for paintbrushes. So if you have enough paintbrushes, because in salons it's also used for brushes, so it's totally fine and safe to use on both natural and synthetic bristles. You can put your paintbrushes in that, let them sit for 10 minutes. Anything you're disinfecting in it can sit for 10 minutes there, take it out, and it's ready to use. Now, things that I would not put in Barbicide, I would not put things like anything that's porous, so pencils, no crayons. I wouldn't put markers in there because I'm not sure that the Barbicide can't get up under the lid of the marker. I would use just like a Clorox wipe or something if you're disinfecting those. But you know, we've just sort of come upon this as an easy way to disinfect, and something that we can do that's not as expensive as buying 1,000 pairs of scissors, because you know, if they're $1.50 each, then you know we're really deep in with something like that. So I hope that that's helpful. I hope that you found something about this video that's helpful. And like I said, I'm sure that there are more things we talked about in the live video and I am just forgetting, but I hope that that's useful to you. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Again, we're already doing some virtual tours. So if you are interested in doing a virtual tour, you just want to know more about what a virtual tour would entail or how we can work together, we're already in the process of doing those. So holler at me. I'm always here to help you. I hope that this video has been helpful. Okay, one more thing. I looked back at the video that I made with the teachers to make sure I included everything, and I did not. So let me add two things. First of all, this right here is another great thing that we use a lot at the museum. So these are just ScotchBrite scrub sponges, or not scrub sponges, regular sponges, Ocello sponges. And these can be cut into small pieces, into 16ths. So we cut it in half and then cut it in half again and then cut that in half again and keep cutting them in half until we get something that's about this size, which is about 1 inch by ½ inch, a little more than ½ inch. These are really wonderful for printmaking. We use these anytime we need something in place of a brayer to apply paint. So instead of using brayers that are maybe difficult to clean and difficult to sanitize, you can use a little sponge and you just put the printmaking ink down and you dab the sponge, get it wet and wring it out so that it's nice and pliable. And then you want to dab the sponge in the paint to get a nice even layer that's not gloppy, just like you would your brayer. So you don't want lots of paint dripping off of it. You just want a nice even layer. You're going to then take this over to your printing plate and do the same thing. Just light dabs on top of your printing plate. Don't press down hard. If you do, then you're going to get ink down into the grooves of your printing plate, whether you're using styrofoam or linoleum or whatever kind of printing plate you're using. You can dab the ink on with the flat side of a sponge. The great thing about this, again, is that the students can wash this and put it in their kit, and it's something that they can keep and use throughout the entire school year if they need to. It's not trash when you're done with it once. So everybody can get one of these, and then for any kind of printmaking activities or even painting activities that this kind of a texture might be useful or a flat painting surface might be useful, we have found these to be great. So we usually buy a big box of these, like a whole case of them. I think it's like, I don't know, I think these are under $4 for this kind of a package, maybe $3, $4 for this package. And it has 4 sponges in it. And you can get 16 per sponge. So that's 64, that's some art teacher math for you, 64 little sponges for about under $5, $4 or $5. And this is a quick and easy way to make something for printing. So I had forgotten that. The other thing that I forgot to tell you is that so Florence County Museum is working to put together supply kits for your virtual students. So we are, the Florence County Museum is putting together a virtual kit for every single student in pre-K through 6th grade, trying to make sure I say it right, through 6th grade. Every single student who's all virtual will get a kit of supplies. And for your in-person students, Dr. Figueres is working to get supplies that you listed that you needed. So if you told me in the survey that you're worried about oil pastels, or you told me in the survey that you're worried about colored pencils or paper or anything that you mentioned that's something that you're worried about, Dr. Figueres is working to make sure that you have what you need. So again, the museum is working to put together a kit for every virtual student, and the school district, or Dr. Figueres at the school district, is working to put together what you said you're worried about needing. So please reach out to him if you see something that you know you need, or you have a question about whether it's something the museum is supplying, or you're supplying, or the school district is supplying. Please reach out to him. I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't know everything on that end. So please do reach out to him if you have questions about that, or if you know, like, I definitely want Barbicide, or I definitely want something like that. It can help you. He can help you get those things together. So sorry to have to add that at the end, but thank you guys so much, and I hope it's been helpful. Have a good day. Bye.